meeting of the Menifee City Council to order. Madam Clerk, who do we have for the invocation this evening?
Sir, that's Pastor Jeff Johnson, Calvary Hills Church. Would you like me to do the roll call real
Yes,
quick?
please,
and then
roll
we'll-
call. I'm sorry.
That's right. Pastor, if you'll give us about 5 seconds here. Councilmember August. Councilmember Furman. Deputy Mayor Edgerton.
Here.
Councilmember Denver.
Here.
Mayor Mann.
Here.
Thank you.
That was actually good. The mayor was so excited to get me up here.
That's pretty good, yeah.
Since you.
Well, Mr. Mayor and council members, thank you for the opportunity and thank you for your service to our great city. Would you join me in prayer? Dear Heavenly Father, God, we lift up not only this city, but in particular this city council meeting, and just pray your blessing upon it. Pray you would give wisdom and discernment and the decisions that will be made here this evening, God, on different resolutions and ordinances that may be discussed. Lord, I pray for these presenters here behind me, Lord, that you would just give them, Lord, just a clarity, and that you would give them a peace and a calm, Lord, to just have a good time with what they're doing here today. And God, once again, we just thank you so much for this great city of ours, and we pray that you would bless it in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Councilmember Furman, would you lead us in the flag salute?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. Madam Clerk, I believe we have a presentation this evening.
That is correct, sir. Would you like me to have them come forward at
Please
this time?
proceed.
All righty. We're going to have a presentation tonight by the Menifee Middle School students, and I'm going to let their teacher give you the balance of that information.
Good evening. I'd like to present Austin, Cruz, Alexis, and Kara. They will be presenting their fitness trail project, which they produced in their STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math class at Menifee Valley Middle School.
Welcome.
Our main goal is to provide a fitness trail for the city of Menifee. For the past 65 days, we've been researching and focusing on creating a fitness trail for our community to use at E.L. Pete Peterson Park. It is important for our community to have a fitness trail for many reasons. The equipment is beneficial to everyone, and every piece of equipment contributes to our community's health in a specific way.
To begin with, the equipment is accessible by anyone at any age or any physical shape. We address our population, which consists of 20,067 are under 18, 6,460 ages are 18 to 24, 18,771 ages are 25 to 44, 14,650 are 65 and up. We are sensitive to the different fitness levels and different age groups. For example, we researched the physical challenges of the elderly and chose equipment that would increase their balance and flexibility and decrease the stress on their joints. We also want to provide a challenge for the athletes in our community. Therefore, we provided equipment that provides a challenge for both their strength and cardiovascular health.
Next is a public appeal. The citizens will greatly appreciate the fitness trail in many ways. First, it is an outdoor free workout. Also, it will help because the healthier you are, the lower a person's insurance costs. There will also be a park for your kids to be entertained, and it is a great way for family and friends to work out together. Next, the citizens will come, which will be successful when the population gets in better shape.
The weightlift is a good workout for the shoulders and biceps. The age groups targeted for this working out machine is 21 to 60. If you want to build muscle, this is the exercise machine you will want. The price for this machinery is $873.
Next is the quad spinner. This piece of equipment is perfect for older people. It is an alternative for people who cannot stand the jarring motion of running. It is a simple machine consisting of a large barrel upon which you roll while sitting. It works the lower body and it also works your abdomen muscle.
The ski walker will improve your cardiovascular health, and it avoids the impact and stress of your runner so that you could run for a longer time. It also stretches most of your muscles.
Next, the lat pull down is a 2 side-by-side exercise station in one. It delivers strength in the upper body, back, biceps, latissimus dorsi, and the real deltoids.
But the balance beam will help deliver balance skills, and it is easy to use even for younger kids. It will also help you to be able to balance for a longer time.
The Jump Touch is also great for seniors. It is also a great stretching tool. Any ages can use this item. The price of this item is $776. It is great for the citizens that are not in good shape.
Then there is the push-up bench. On this piece of equipment, you get a great, vigorous, and classical workout. It allows growth of your upper body muscles. Because of the up and down motion, it works both your triceps and biceps. Upper body strength and endurance are keys to fitness.
Also, the self-weighted rower uses one's own body weight to provide resistance, while delivering both cardiovascular and muscle strengthening in the total body. It also emphasizes the upper body, back, and biceps.
In addition, the elliptical machine avoids stress and impact on your feet, knees, hips, and lower back. With that, it also has less impact on the joints. It also improves cardiovascular fitness.
The leg press provides 3 different positions, each with a different level of resistance. It strengthens the most powerful parts of the muscular system, which are the quadriceps, gluteals, and hips, while toning the calf muscles.
This exercise machine, the hip twister, is a good stretching machine. Anybody can use it, including seniors. The muscles it works is both obliques, abs, and extensive. The price for this hip twister is $681.
The cost for each piece of equipment varies from $291 for the push-up bars to $1,781 for the quad spinner. Each piece of equipment comes with a sign with directions for the usage of that piece of equipment pasted on the machine. If you would like to upgrade to a separate large posted sign, the cost is an additional $1,182. The cost for 11 pieces of equipment and signage is $11,857.
We appreciate your consideration for a fitness trail at ELP Peterson Park in Menifee. We feel that the benefits for our community over the long run will outweigh the initial cost by improving the health of our citizens. Thank you. Do you have any questions about our research?
Thank you very much for your presentation. Obviously, you put a lot of time and effort and work into this proposal. Who's the team leader for the STEM, or are you all equal?
We're all
You're all equal? Are there any questions of this team from council? I have a couple. So your proposal to put in a fitness trail at Pete Peterson Park for the price that you've shown, how much time or how much distance would there be between, did you calculate in your findings how much distance would be between each machine for cardio? Or, because I noticed that you were going with your video presentation along the walkway at Pete Peterson Park by the dog run, and then around to the north side of the park, or the south side of the park. I was just curious if you were doing a lap or how much distance was between the equipment. If you don't, I don't know, Mayor, is a fine answer. It's okay.
We don't know.
Okay, all right. Well, are there no other questions from council? All right, well, Councilmember Furman.
Would they be coming up with some fundraising ideas, or we're gonna throw a barbecue down at Peterson Park? There could be some good ideas to raise some funds also.
They're going to, how many cars are they going to wash?
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for your presentation. Well done. I know that the STEM program in the Menifee Union School District is alive and well. Excellent presentation. I look forward to more of these in the future. This is a great idea. Don't know whether we're going to adopt it tonight. For your own U.S. Government 101, because this is not on the agenda tonight, we can't really discuss it with you, but we may bring it back at a future meeting with staff to further investigate your idea. We thank you very much for putting it forward. I hope you get an A on your project. Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Vogel, principal of Menifee Valley Middle School, the big, tall gentleman in the back, who looks like he could be security for us.
You already got that.
All right, thank you. Thank you. You're welcome. On to the next agenda item, which is approval of the meeting minutes.
Sir, with your permission,
Yes?
I have provided in your red folder 2 modifications. One is because I spelled Dr. Crone's name wrong, so on each page that it was spelled wrong, I corrected it, and I apologize for that. And on the minutes that you have, I noted on page 8 that Mr. Watkins, the Deputy Director of County Environmental Health, said that very few cities have separate health departments, and he noted that the city does have a health department through the County of Public Health, and I put that wrong in the original minutes. I wanted to make that correction. The city has access to the County Public Health, and they were the ones who offered to do the research for us when they could.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. Are there any other than the spelling and that one addition, are there any other changes to the minutes from the council or from staff? I'd entertain a motion as modified by the city clerk.
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those, any objections? So ordered. Next item on the agenda, public comments. Madam Clerk, do we have any speakers this evening?
We do, Your Honor. And there are no modifications to the agenda on item 5.
Thank you.
Gillian Larson and Judy, wow, you'd think I'd ask you that when I was talking to you. Say it. Thank you.
Just Judy Z, it's easy. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I'm Jillian. I'm with Reality Rally out of Temecula, and we do a huge fundraising event every year for Michelle's Place. It's a breast cancer resource center. I bring over 100 reality stars, a few NFL football players, a few musicians to Temecula, and they all actually have to raise $400 to come and be part of our fantastic, awesome weekend. But I'm here to show you that we want you back, well, not back, you guys couldn't make it last year, so we want you in our event this year because we have amongst the players on Saturday, it's an amazing race kind of game throughout Temecula where up to 80 teams play 13 challenges throughout Old Town, like the amazing race that are put on by the gunfighters, the Children's Museum, the History Association, all 13 groups of people. And within that, we have the City Council Challenge. Murrieta has a team in, Lake Elsinore has a team in, Temecula has a team in, and we really want Murrieta in this year to come and play the game. It's 3 council, city employees, whoever you want to have come and have fun with us, and then we give you a reality star to be on your team. Or if you want 4 city employees city council, mayor, city council members, then you can have all four, and we just don't give you a reality star to play. Lake Elsinore took it last year. They have thrown it down, saying nobody's going to take that trophy back from them this year. They said they've been conditioning, losing weight, getting ready for this game because it's such fun. And we really want you back again. Well, come, we want you this year. So if you can come to Reality Rally, the dates are April 6th, and Judy's going to tell you just a little about the event because we'd love to invite your mayor and city council to all parts of the weekend, which is, again, an awesome way. It's fun for funds for Michelle's Place.
So we hope you all come out, and we would also like to welcome the entire Menifee community. We have the entire weekend. It's April 5th, 6th, and 7th, starting on Friday the 5th with a golf tournament at Palamesa Resort. Friday evening, we will be out at Wilson Creek Winery. We have a celebrity reception there, and people can purchase tickets there. Come hang out with us, hang out with the stars. Saturday morning, as you know, there is the game, but there's a lot more going on Saturday morning. There's a lot of 31 things for free to do in the morning. There's a children's challenge area where a family of any size for only $10 can come out and play like a mini challenge that we have up by City Hall. We also have star autograph signings, and we have a bunch of activities that are going out throughout the day. On Saturday evening, we will be out at South Coast Winery, where we will have a red carpet extravaganza, and all the winners can brag about their day of the game. And then on Sunday morning, we will have a volunteer appreciation at Palamesa Resort. So we have a very, very full weekend, and encourage you all to come, obviously, to play the game and challenge those other city teams, as well as the entire community to come out and join us for the event itself. If you want to check it out, you can go to realityrally.com.
Thank you. Is there any quick questions from council? Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, now, are the games, is this all golf, or what am I, did I miss something?
Golf is on Friday, so that's that one day on Friday. The actual challenge is a multitude of different types of challenges. So it could be a puzzle, it could be a physical challenge, it could be something just fun and silly. And they're all secret. Jillian and her team are the only ones that know. Don't even know. I'd have to be shot if I was told this.
Well, you're from Temecula, so you tell Ron Roberts, and I'm a lot older than he is, I'll challenge him to a foot race in weightlifting.
Okay, we'll work on that one.
We want you guys in that this year. We want to see all four cities come and play that game and see, because it is such fun. If you go onto realityrally.com, look at the video highlights, and you'll see what everybody does.
So if we send a group of people there, they don't know what they're going to be challenged at?
No.
Nope.
So those of us who are eating candy back here, this may not be the right thing for us to do, or?
Yeah, they're fun. Like, you get to the theater, you have to dress in costume and maybe do a challenge that's reading Hamlet. You get to the Children's Museum, you have to do something scientific. You get to Boojum, who's one of our outdoor experiences. We had a zip line through the trees last year.
A very low-level zip line.
And Lake Elsinore won this?
They
Yes,
did,
they
and
did.
they are conditioning to take it again this year. So it's such fun, but it's silly things, it's costume things, it's scientific things, it's physical things. It's enough for everybody to have something out of it that they really enjoy.
This last year, apparently, it wasn't an intellectual contest.
Oh! I think the game is on.
I think it is.
Well, thank you very much for Councilmember Denver. Did you have
Mayors,
some?
I think this is a challenge, and I think our city staff, with our mayor leading the group, should go and do this. Don't you think so? I think so.
Yeah, well, I was going to ask you, is it typically held on the same weekend every year?
It is the first weekend in April this year. We moved it to the first weekend for a variety of reasons, but yes, it's every April.
Okay, excellent. And who are the cities that participate?
Right now, Murrieta is in, Lake Elsinore's in, Temecula's in. So we've got all their teams ready to go. And I encourage you guys, and I know that it's soon, but I encourage you to get me your team and your name now within the next week, because we're only taking 80 teams, and I have over 60 already. So we will have to close it at 80, because I don't want absolute chaos in Old Town. I love chaos, but not that much. So I need just 3 people who want to play this, and we'll get you all in and lined up. And we have media coming from a variety of places throughout the country doing media exposure. So we want to interview you guys and see
All
you
right.
challenge
Well,
the others.
we'll punt it to the city manager to decide whether we're going to participate this year. if I could ask, if you could let us know well in advance next year so that we can advertise it, participate more. Because I know that many of us, it's only 2 weeks out, and I know that some of us are absolutely already conflicted for that weekend. But we will participate to the extent that we can, if we can.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And any city employee, it doesn't have to necessarily be the council, although the other councils want to see you guys there. But it can be any city employee on the team. And,
Okay.
And we would love to have you guys. So
All right,
we brought
thank you.
some books. I'll give them
Yeah, just
to
leave those with the city clerk, and she'll make sure that we get them. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Claudia Greenwood would be your next speaker, sir.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, staff, and residents of Menifee. These are hard acts to follow. Next time I want to be first, Kathy.
Okay, I'm with you.
Usually I'm up here talking about or representing Sun City Canine Adoptions. Today I am here to represent Menifee Valley Food Cupboard. A friend of mine asked me to make this announcement this evening. The Menifee Valley Lodge number 289 presents the 4th annual golf tournament on Sunday, April 14th at 9 a.m. at the Golden Era Golf Course in San Jacinto. It's $50 for the donation, and that includes the 18-hole scramble closest to the pin, longest drive, prizes, lunch, a golf cart, refreshments, and raffle. All proceeds go to the Christmas Charity Fund to benefit the Menifee Valley Food Cupboard by providing food boxes for needy families with children. So I do have a few flyers. With your permission, I would like to be able to leave them out in the reception area or give them to Kathy or someone. And if anybody's interested, the contact people are on the flyer. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Leave those with the city clerk, and we'll make
Okay.
sure that they get posted appropriately. Thank you so much. Madam Clerk, next speaker.
Katie Manier.
Good evening. Once again, I'm Katie Manier, City of Menifee. I'm going to say the same thing I said at the Planning Commission. When a topic has to do with health and safety of the public, there is no time limit on speaking. So I'm going to expect to finish what I have to say tonight. And those words came from John Denver at a recent meeting. So I was recently flipping through some channels. I think I said that before, and saw a little blurb of Dr. Phil, which was pretty interesting. I never watch it. But he had something to say about the 14 steps of winners. The first one was, winners always tell the truth. Always. They are truthful. Always. What does that tell me about the city council? I won't even go there with it. Now that it's been established, and it was established at the Planning Commission meeting, that there was sledge spread on acres of land in Menifee. I want to read OSHA sledge safety standards. And I want to clear up one misconception right off the bat. There was no contact with Mark Metalco and I. This was not prearranged, the conversation, the questions I asked him and the answers I received. I have only spoke to Mark Metalco 3 times since I've lived in this city. Once was the night of the election, when I was present with hundreds of other people. The second and third time was at the Sledge Forum, held at the Wooden Nickel Ranch. I have asked the city over and over to obtain records, and they have never made a move to obtain copies of records regarding the dumping of sledge on fields in Menifee. They did hold a forum that was a joke and had no experts present. The following is from OSHA. Do we know that pathogens can cause disease? Yes. The association between hygiene, raw sewage, and infectious disease is well established. Employees reported repeated episodes of gastrointestinal illness after working with the biosolids, either at the treatment plant or during land application. I'm not just going to call them workers tonight. I'm going to call them people, human beings. We are all human beings. We're being exposed to the same stuff these workers are. To protect workers who have direct contact with biosolids and thus are likely to have an exposure to pathogens, employers should provide a basic level of protection. Does our city provide any protection? I think not. The workers are to avoid touching face, mouth, eyes, nose, and open sores and cuts while working with this product. They're supposed to use barriers between skin and surfaces exposed to biosolids. Remove excess biosolids from footgear prior to entering a vehicle or building. And we all tramp through fields down here with it. Thirdly, they must flush your eyes with water if they come in contact with it. Change into clean clothes after being exposed to it. Use gloves to protect their skin. There's periodic training on standard hygiene practices for biosolid workers. They should be conducted by qualified safety and health professionals to cover
Katie,
issues
that's your
such as the
time.
following.
That's your time.
Thank you
I was
very-
under the impression, since it had to do with health and safety, there was not a red light to come on.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ms. Manier. Next speaker, Madam Clerk.
Bill Stevens?
Good evening, Mayor and City Councilman. My thoughts tonight aren't on the agenda, but I just want to bring it to your attention. We've lived here about 18 months, love Menifee. It's a great place. I appreciate this beautiful city. About September, I put in the correct paperwork to find out about a stop sign on the corner of Lake Fork and Menifee Road, about 800 yards from, what's your school, Savannah? I'm sorry. Thank you. Freedom Crest Elementary School. It's at a blind corner right around, right across the bridge. There's the golf course, and there's a horrific turn on Menifee before you get to Lake Fork, where it's really blinding. You can't see. So I submitted the paperwork to get a street sign put in. About 3 weeks later, they had the stripping across the street to do the counting. Like I said, that was back in September, and I haven't heard anything. So I just wanted to kind of follow up. Maybe staff could just let me know or respond somehow what the next step is. I'm just really concerned. I'm surprised. The speed limit there is adequate, but cars do go quite a bit quicker. My main concern is the blind corner when you're trying to come out onto Menifee. It's kind of a rough area. So if I could get a follow-up, my phone number's with the city clerk. Just find out where we're at with that information.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Stevens, Jonathan Smith can help you with that. If you want to go out into the lobby, Jonathan, and provide some information, we'll be happy to
Great,
follow up.
thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you for bringing this to our attention. Next speaker, Madam Clerk.
Your Honor, that is the speakers under public comments for tonight.
Thank you very kindly. On to council member updates and comments. Are there any updates from council members?
I'll speak.
Councilmember Furman.
The there's how do I start this? Let's see. It's basically the intent of this council to help new businesses and also to help the existing businesses that we have in the city. I think there's a misconception that that the businesses in the rural community are being abandoned. I want to assure you that this council has been aware of these situations, and we're working with staff to come to hopefully a happy and peaceful conclusion. It is our intent to make it as easy and inexpensive to bring these situations under basically the rules of the city. And I want to assure you that the council has everybody's interest at their best heart. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Furman. Councilmember Denver.
Mr. Mayor, Council, I'd like to make you aware, although Councilman Furman was there, the Arts Council Menifee had 2 mystery dinners this last weekend.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it was Friday and Sunday, maybe Saturday and no, it was Friday and Sunday. It was a great time. I was thinking that the mayor was going to be the one killed, but it didn't happen that way. There was someone else killed, and they did figure out who it was. It was the quality of these events, these theatrical events in Menifee, are getting better and better and better. I'd like to encourage everyone to please come to the next one next year.
Thank you, Mr. Denver. Councilmember August.
I just want to take a moment to share Mr. Furman's sentiments about the small business owners in the city of Menifee. It's tough for people out there these days, and I for one, being a councilman, will do everything I can to help the people, work it out with the city and get their businesses going and so on and so forth. So I do share that and his sentiments, and thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember August. Any other comments? Thank you. I would like to, it's my pleasure to announce to the public that our very own Commissioner Lisa Sobek was selected as Assemblywoman Melissa Melendez's Woman of the Year for Assembly District 67 for this year. So congratulations to Commissioner Sobek. She couldn't be here this evening because she's under the weather, and as a grandparent, she takes care of a couple of her grandkids after school, so we forgive her for not being here. Also, I would like to ask, in the wake of Ms. Manier's comments, as well as Commissioner Metelko's statements in the press the other day, I would like to ask Commissioner Metelko, who has been quoted in the press as saying that he has records proving that sludge was spread in areas that officials will not acknowledge. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the reason why we had our workshop. And the workshop was approved by the council back on May 1st of 2012. So when you take a look at what the council authorized all the way back with the previous administration to today, I want to respect Commissioner Metelko's comments and offer him one more chance to provide these documents to City Hall. And I would ask support of the council from at least one other to make this happen. I would like to ask Commissioner Metelko to provide these documents by the close of business, 5 p.m. on Tuesday, the 26th of March. And I would also ask the support of council to have this codified, Madam Clerk, in a follow-up letter subsequent to this evening to Commissioner Metelko to produce these documents with the deadline of next Tuesday at 5 p.m. Can I get a second on this request?
So moved.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Furman. Deputy Mayor Edgerton.
Yes, and I want to speak to this and support the motion. First of all, I don't think this information changes anything. We've done a lot of work, brought in a lot of experts, and my opinion is after, no pun intended, after the dust settles, we'll find that Menifee is still one of the safest places to raise your kids and play and have business and raise families, et cetera. And also want to make sure, and I know the mayor agrees with it because I talked to him about it. My own planning commissioner that I appointed doesn't always agree with me. So what? We don't appoint planning commissioners to agree with us. We appoint planning commissioners to advise us. So they need to be able to express their own opinion, et cetera. However, in this situation, and I think the thing that's got the mayor concerned, and I concur with him strongly, is not that there's a difference of opinion or dissent, but rather as people who have the safety of the community as a responsibility as fiduciaries. What the commissioner said was that people are in danger. He was categorical. He was specific. He said people out there are getting sick in Menifee, and he said he had the records to prove it. Well, when somebody takes that position, then we as fiduciaries have a responsibility to make sure we've covered the safety of the citizens, because there's citizens out there will say, you don't seem to be concerned, Councilman, but we are. What kind of records does he have? And that's what the mayor is saying. He's a public official, so I'm sure he'll bring those records forward. We need to see those records. I would predict that those records, like a lot of other records I've seen that some of the people have put forward, are factual, and they talk about a lot of different things and mutations of pathogens and what's happened with Alzheimer's and on and on and on, but they don't support any kind of conclusion that we've got contamination here in Menifee. I mean, there are places where they have it and you don't even have to dump it in there, the San Joaquin Valley, where you get valley fever just out there in the dirt fields, and the kids get it. But so we are fiduciaries, and if somebody's saying that the citizens are in danger, then we should get the records and double check them, turn them over to the staff, so the staff can look at them, turn them back to the experts, and then report back to the council. I think it's going to be negative, but let's just not assume. Let's go ahead and check it out. We also have a financial obligation. We've been put on notice. Here's a public official who stated categorically and specifically, your citizens are in danger, and I have the records to prove it. We've been put on notice. They then printed it in the newspaper. Legally, what happens if you've been put on notice as a city and somebody gets hurt or sick or killed or whatever, after you've been put on notice, you exponentially have increased your liability because you have been put on notice, you did nothing about it. So we definitely have to follow through. I know the man will bring the records forward and give them over to staff so that we can have them evaluated. This is a very important issue, and it was exacerbated because of the following. We were told that both this man and his wife did not come to the workshop because they were threatened. This is a man who's 6'2", he's a big guy. This is very important to them, but they did not come to the meeting. This also, I believe, was in the press. We cannot afford to have somebody say they've been threatened and not come to a public meeting and then sit here and wonder, well, is staff being threatened? Is a citizen have to be concerned? There are cities where you do have to be concerned. And by golly, I'll tell you, Menifee isn't going to be one of them. So, Mr. Mayor, if you would add to that you want Mr. Metelko to bring forward the person or persons who have threatened him and the level that so frightened him. This is a big guy. So frightened him that he would not come with his wife to a public meeting. I'm assuming that it's considerable. And because staff needs our support. What if they get threatened? So if he's exaggerating, well then fine, he'll have to face the embarrassment. If he's not, then this is a police matter. And we'll turn it over to the police and they'll take care of it. So if you could add that, I would expect any planning manager or planning commissioner would want to bring that forward. If he needs to keep it private, he can go directly to the police, and our chief can talk to our city manager and our city attorney. He doesn't have to bring it forward publicly if he doesn't want to, but we need to know who it is and the level of the threat.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I will so modify my request to encourage Commissioner Metelko to bring that information forward to the appropriate level of government. Councilmember Denver.
Mr. Mayor, I've said this before, I would like to say it again, because this is now a staff member who's making accusations about the safety of our town. This is a real estate issue. This is an issue of pricing of the citizens' homes in this town. If you look at in the last 12 months of the prices of homes in the neighboring towns compared to Menifee, you will see that while we've gone up, we have not gone up as much as the neighboring towns around us. One could argue that it's because of this sludge argument, which I thought was settled. I thought we brought about that council meeting. We went to great expense and great political effort to make sure that everyone who had anything to say was there, and it certainly was announced. This is a $1 million issue for us, and especially in my area, up in Romaland and around Heritage Lakes, this costs my people a lot of money. This continued ongoing discussion, it affects the prices of our homes. And I would ask, in addition to all that is said, that we get this problem solved particularly when one of our own staff members, people who work with us, who we have designated to do city work, makes such comments.
Thank you, Councilmember Denver. Those are points well taken. Councilmember August?
Well, I might as well put in my 2 cents. I can, no, I want to. Thanks. I can honestly say that of all the council member here, I put in an awful lot of time, spent probably way too much time. I really fixated on this sludge issue, and I went to an awful lot of effort contacting people, getting their research, finding out what they have about, what they know about this subject. I also contacted several people of that group that's referred to in the newspapers as the sludge group. And I invited them to bring in all the information prior to our workshop. And what we heard over and over in the papers was that we are not responsible. We do not have to bring in any information and present it to you. It's up to you to go out and find the needle in the haystack. These are some pretty good people out there that have these concerns. But it's awfully unfair to the city council to say, we don't have to bring in anything, and you have to go out and find it, and we're not going to bring in anything. So I know Mr. Metelko very well, and I know that he will conform and comply with the request of the mayor, and I hope that he does bring his information with one caveat. That information has to apply to the city of Menifee. I mean, I understand they bring in records about corruption in Georgia and so on and so forth. So I would add, and if anybody's listening, they can pass on to Mr. Metelko. Any information he brings in, I hope it's I hope it concerns the city of Menifee and not somewhere else in the world or not somebody else somewhere else in the United States. So those are my points I'd like to make, and thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember August, and for all of your comments. I really appreciate the support. Commissioner Metelko feels passionately about this issue, and we rolled out a substantial effort over a many lengthy week period and expended a lot of resources to put out the information for the public, and then, you know, one of the key folks in the community didn't show. We'll move on to the agenda, but I just want to leave you with this. You know, we all were raised in an era, you know, you can't call a fire in a crowded movie theater when there is no fire. And so with that said, I'd like to move on to the consent calendar. Madam Clerk.
Sir, I do have, excuse me, sorry, Your Honor. I do have one commenter on an item on the consent calendar, if I may call them first.
Please do.
Thank you. Pam Davison.
Hi.
Good evening.
Council members, Mayor, how are you guys doing tonight? Hope you had a wonderful day. Everybody here, I'm glad everybody could make it. I hope everybody had a wonderful day today. I would just like to say not everybody has had a wonderful day today. Okay, there's lots of people out there that didn't have wonderful days. They were out there wandering around, looking for jobs, sleeping in their cars. There's a lot more homeless people than there were a few years ago. That's what I'm here to talk about tonight. I would like to encourage the council members here tonight to cast their votes in favor of Bill AB 5. Okay, and I'm here to convince you that there are more reasons than not to do that. Okay, I have a brother. He's about my age. I'm 55. He's almost my age. He looks a lot worse for the wear and tear because he's been schizophrenic since he was 17. Okay, he's been homeless off and on all those years. Okay, but you know what? These days you see a lot more than just homeless, mentally ill people, and you see a lot more than just homeless alcoholics. You know, but even those people deserve, you know, they deserve to have basic human rights. Okay, everybody, and I'm just going to tell you, in my youth, I was homeless, okay, and you know, you don't know the situations. One thing that I've taught my kids is that one thing that you can count on in life is change. Everything's going to change. Nothing remains the same. So each and every one of you that are sitting here tonight, your situation could change. You could be homeless, okay? You could end up living in your car and having to look for a place to shower, okay, and trying to get a job. Think about how it would be to try and get a job and you can't shower and make yourself presentable. Okay, that's, okay. Let me calm down. Okay, HB 5, at the heart of the Homeless Bill of Rights is a legal protection for those who must engage in life-sustaining activities in public property. It gives people the right to sleep in their car legally parked, to possess personal property on public land, to receive legal counsel when cited. It allows collecting and possessing goods for recycling and does not allow authorities to force people into shelters or social service programs. And let me just make a comment about that. Okay, I had a friend that I met when I was doing a soup kitchen over in Long Beach, and I met him, and he was on the streets, and his name was Dave, and he had lost his legs in the course of his life. You know, it was an accident, and he was a great guy. He just had a great sense of humor. But I met him, and his biggest problem in Long Beach was that he couldn't find a place to stay for longer than 3 days, because there are so many homeless people there that you could only stay in a homeless shelter for 3 days.
Pam.
Okay, so he had the
Pam.
problem, his legs were cut off up to here.
Ms.
Pam,
Davidson.
Okay.
I'm sorry, that's your time.
Oh, well, let me just finish. Can I just
Please.
finish my sentence here? Okay, I'll just wind it up right here, okay? Someday you or your children may find yourselves homeless, and you will be glad for these basic human rights, to be able to take a shower and go to the bathroom, and just to sit on a curb if you're tired, if you're old and tired, okay? So think about that.
Thank you
Good
very
night,
much for your
gentleladies.
comments. Madam Clerk, do we have any more speakers on the consent calendar?
No, sir.
Gentlemen, I would entertain a motion on the consent calendar.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Yes. Councilmember August. Aye. Councilmember Furman. Aye. Deputy Mayor Edgerton. Aye. Councilmember Denver. Aye. And Mayor Mann.
Aye.
Thank you.
That brings us to public hearings. We have no public hearings this evening, and to agenda item 12, discussion items. If it pleases the council, I would like to hear agenda items 12.1 and 12.2 together, if that's okay with the city attorney. All right, I'm sure that you've read your agenda packets, and the reason why I want to take these together is because appointment to the Regional Autism Task Force, which was asked for by the city of Temecula about a year and a half ago, former council member Christensen was appointed to that task force. And subsequent to that, a call came up for a youth, family, and health regional task force in the wake of the shooting back east at the elementary school to bring forth issues regarding cyberbullying and online bullying and those types of things, as well as video game issues, et cetera, et cetera. And so, being mindful of not overtaxing the staff as well as not overtaxing the council with several appointments to these regional boards, commissions, and committees, number one, I would ask for discussion from you regarding whether you feel that we need to do this at this juncture. The Southwest Coalition of Cities, which was established about 3 years ago, is no longer meeting. And so I just want to hear, I'm reluctant to automatically make appointments to these two task force without your input. And so I'd like to open up for discussion for you all, and I'd welcome your advice. Council Member August.
Mr. Mayor, as you know, I did I'll call you on this today, and I said that if I'm appointed to one of these two, I would respectfully decline. I am been on the council a short period of time. I find my time being taken up with lots of these types of efforts and these assignments, especially a lot with the Chamber of Commerce and so on and so forth. I know there are people out here in this city that know a lot more about autism than I do, and frankly, I haven't thought too much about it. I didn't run on it. It was never brought up in my city. I would be more than happy to find someone in my city who has a need to go out and speak about autism and so on and so forth. And they can report back to me, I'll report back to the city. But I personally do not want to go down and be on that committee, because knowing me, I would probably take up scads and scads of time with something that I feel, that's not really, doesn't really resonate in the community that I represent. I feel the same way about the other council, and I'm not trying to walk away from anything. It's just that I feel I really need to focus my time on the needs of the people in my district, and I can probably do a better job than I'm doing, and I don't need to be sent off on a lot of these other excursions into things that I really don't have a lot of experience with. So that would be my point, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. August. Deputy Mayor Edgerton?
Yes, these are really important matters, and however, I think that to piggyback on Councilman August, there are so many important matters, and a lot of us find ourselves chasing our tail. Not that staff doesn't find themselves chasing their tail, but just as a matter of offering volunteers, maybe there's somebody on staff that would be better qualified. I know I'm not qualified to understand autism. Maybe there would be somebody that has a better background on staff who would want to be involved. But I just throw that out as a thought.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. Councilmember Furman?
I also think that possibly in our citizenry, I believe there's probably some people that possibly might be more familiar with autism and some of these problems. I think we ought to maybe open it up for a citywide volunteer also.
That'd be a good idea.
Okay. Thank you very much for those comments. Madam City Attorney, when it comes to these types of regional task force, where the request comes to appoint a council member of the elected body of whatever agency, do we have, in your opinion, do we have the flexibility to appoint a citizen?
It would really depend on each of the organizations. Oh, I'm sorry. It would depend on each of the organizations and what their requirements are. Some of these organizations do have only council members, and if that's the case, then no, you wouldn't have the authority. So I would have to look at these to see.
Okay, thank you. Then if it please, Councilmember Denver.
Your intent clearly is to focus our efforts on things that we think that we're personally involved with, knowing our time constraints, rather than to decide not to put somebody on these committees. I would recommend, for purposes of not offending that we just postpone this decision, and that we just not make a decision tonight, rather than go through the efforts of whether or not we're going to do it with the city, put it out, or whether we're going to have a council member do it or not. Let's just postpone the discussion on it, because I don't want the newspaper to read tomorrow that the city of Menifee has decided to not put anybody on these committees. That's a very strong statement that I'm not sure we wish to make. Sure.
All right, very good. I appreciate all the comments that have been made, and the sensitivities surrounding these appointments. And these are important matters in society, to be sure, and we want to be sensitive to them in all areas. So, if it's okay with the council, I would like to table these items for the future with staff's assistance. If we could maybe get clarification from the leadership in these task force, if it's okay if we appoint citizens who may be more knowledgeable in these matters than us. Okay, is that acceptable to the council? Yeah. Can I get, okay. All right, very good. I believe that takes care of 12.1 and 12.2. On to agenda item 12.3, accept Cal Recycle 2012-13 rubberized payment grant.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. The item before you is to consider the acceptance of a Cal Recycle grant the city has applied for and is due to receive if you accept it. And here to give you more information is our Finance Director, Terry Willoughby, and our Assistant Director of Public Works, Jonathan Smith.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council and residents. The item before you tonight is the consideration of acceptance of the grant application for the Cal Recycle Rubberized Pavement Grant Program. This program, which was formerly known as the Rubberized Asphalt Concrete Program, promotes the use of recycled content such as recycled tires, and to decrease the amount of unlawful disposal and stockpiling of waste tires. The application projects that we used were the Newport Road widening project between Antelope Road and Menifee Road, and also the Newport Road pavement rehabilitation project between Murrieta Road and Bradley Road. These projects were identified by the engineering department as being necessary projects and appropriate for this use of material. Rubberized asphalt concrete use has many benefits beyond the environmental conservation aspect. It resists cracking and lasts longer than conventional materials. It also provides better traction, retains its darker color longer so that the road markings remain clearly visible longer, and has a noise reduction property. Due to the heavy traffic volume, Newport Road is experiencing premature pavement failure. With many residential homes located adjacent to this busy roadway, this material will proven longevity and ability to reduce road noise will help address some of these issues. The grant program has two types of projects available, and we selected the rubberized asphalt concrete portion, and both Newport Roads projects will be using this material of rubberized asphalt concrete. The city received notification on March 4th, 2013 that the application was approved for funding in the amount of $250,000. Construction of all funded projects must be complete by April 1st, 2015, so we have some time to complete these projects, and it's felt these projects will be complete within this time frame. There is no match requirement with the grant program, and staff recommends that council accept the 2012-13 Cal Recycle Grant Award and authorize staff to proceed with all the required grant documents and agreements. With that, I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Willoughby. Our Deputy Mayor Edgerton.
I'm always concerned when it comes to grants. I love grants because they're free, but just want to make sure. Usually there's a hook somewhere here. What's the hook? What do they want from us to give us 250 grand?
They want us to use the recycled material.
Just
promoting the use of recycled tires.
what's in it for them? This is a way to, in a positive, constructive way, get rid of a lot of waste that we can utilize in a very positive way.
That's
Sound like a
correct.
win-win.
It's a win-win for us and the agency.
There's no bond issue. There's nothing. Just
There's nothing, there's no match requirement for the funding. So the city, and we're able to use it in projects appropriately.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Denver.
It's my understanding, is this correct, that that there's a slight increase in cost of this material, and this $250,000 covers all or most of that extra increase in cost, or some percentage of it?
That's correct, it covers the increase in cost.
Is it about 100, is it give or take 100% of the extra cost versus the asphalt we would normally use?
Jonathan.
Excuse me. I can address that. Yes, this cost, we estimate for the Newport Road widening, we're going to use on 3.5 miles of roadway. That cost will be approximately $115,000, and this grant covers all of that. The rest of the grant will be used on about 4.5 miles of roadway on Newport Road between Marietta and Bradley, and that's $135,000. That's the full cost of the material that we'll be using.
So then my understanding's incorrect, that this is covering the entire cost of the asphalt product that we're putting on plus, and it's not, as I thought, the increased cost because of this new modern product.
It's the cost of the rubberized asphalt. That's correct.
And we would have had to pay for the asphalt, the standard normal asphalt, had we not, if we do not accept this grant.
That's correct, and we would probably we would have to use a little more of the conventional asphalt because of the properties of the rubberized asphalt.
But there is a small increase in cost of the rubberized asphalt over asphalt.
That's correct, but this grant covers that.
Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, sir. Just a further clarification, this also allows us to reduce or use the $250,000 that we would have set aside for this project on a different project, on another project. So it actually, I think the mileage goes a long way, especially on the roads.
So really, it's a total cost, it's a benefit of $500,000 when you look at it from a total cost of ownership standpoint. You have to.
We can, yes, we'll be able to reprogram the money we've
Yeah.
spent on the material and use it elsewhere.
Are there any other questions from staff, from council? Can I have a motion to
Just one,
Councilman
Jonathan, you say it is more. Is it 10% higher on Give me a little cost on over normal asphalt. 20% higher?
The additional cost of the rubberized asphalt can range between 10 and 15% more. But in this case, these costs will be offset by this grant. So.
Okay. I was going to do my driveway, so I just want to know what's cheaper, that's all.
It fluctuates with the market like lobster. Mr. Denver.
I hadn't thought of it as lobster before. Why do we not use this? Well, did I hear you say that this has a benefit to us in repairs, that this doesn't damage as quickly? You did not say, but I assume you meant that this will last longer than the other asphalt by 20, 30, 70%. And if that's so, why wouldn't we use this on every project we use everywhere all the time if it's 10 or 15% more?
Well, that's the case. It is an extra cost, and sometimes it impairs our budget for using a lot of it. We are looking at applications throughout the city where this will benefit us, both financially and on longevity of the roadway.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Are there any other questions from council? May I have a motion to accept this non-matching grant?
So moved.
May I have a second?
I second.
Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember August. Councilmember Furman.
Aye.
Yeah.
Deputy Mayor Edgerton. Councilmember Denver. Mayor Mann.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, council. On to city attorney reports.
Yes, we have a brief report with regard to the certain matters that should have been taken care of at the beginning of the city's formation, but are still lingering. And essentially, my partner, Steve Onstadt, is here. We have been working with the County of Riverside to effect the transfer of the security deposits that are on hand. I'm sorry?
I just wanted the mayor and you to be aware that I have a speaker. I don't know when you want to take it.
I assume it would come after we tell them what it is.
Okay.
Okay. At any rate, we've been working to transfer the subdivision security agreements, the bonds that have been posted for performance of conditions and so on that were imposed by the county before the city was formed. A number of these are beginning to reach expiration time, and some of the conditions have not been met. So we want to get control of those bonds that secure performance on these projects so that, in fact, the conditions can be honored that were imposed by the county and the costs can be covered. And I think Steve can tell you more about what has happened and transpired with the county.
I don't know if I can add a whole lot more, but like Ms. Biggs said, my name is Steve Onstadt, and I'm a partner at Alshire and Winder. And myself and city staff have been working with county council and county staff to identify and try to effect an orderly transition of regulation of subdivisions that used to be in the unincorporated area that are now in the incorporated area. We've identified 44 subdivision tracts that are within the city of Menifee that used to be under the jurisdiction of the county. All of these subdivisions are in various forms of development, some at the beginning, some in default, some have been completed. But they all have subdivision improvement agreements where the developer obligates itself to complete the infrastructure for the subdivisions. And to ensure performance, the developer is required to take out a bond. So if the developer doesn't do it, the surety has to pay either the county or the city to make sure that that work is completed. Of these 44, some of the subdivision improvements agreements have been satisfied and the bonds released. Others are in default, primarily because the developer came, like many of us have, on hard economic times from the mid-2000s forward. And there's a question of enforcing the bonds to ensure that the subdivision improvements are completed. The county has offered the city, if they want to take an assignment or to step in the county's shoes to be able to enforce those bonds to ensure completion of the infrastructure, then the county will assign those rights to the city if the city wants it. There's no obligation on the part of the city, and if the city chooses to do that, they would have that enforcement power. And as Ms. Biggs said, on some of those, the statute of limitations to be able to enforce the bonds are coming up later this year, starting in mid-April. Some subdivision improvement agreements, the developers have said, well, we'll just terminate ours with the county, and we'll terminate the bonds, and we'll work with the city on a new subdivision improvement agreement and get a new bond. And David Ross of the city is working with some developers in that regard to basically start a new contract. The problematic ones are the subdivision improvement agreements that are ongoing, and the county's been giving extensions for them to complete it, but they're not done yet. And for a variety of reasons, the developers may not want a new agreement with the city because that would require a new bond, and bonds are more expensive these days than they were back in the mid-2000s. So the county has said, well, we would be willing to assign our rights under the subdivision improvement agreements and the bonds that go along with those agreements to the city if they want to take those rights. Again, it's no obligation. You basically just have the rights. You stand in the shoes of the county to enforce the agreements and, if necessary, to enforce the bonds. We have come upon one bonding company that's in bankruptcy. It's called Western Insurance. So those subdivision improvement agreements that are bonded by Western Insurance, we have to look at very carefully and make a determination as to whether to make a claim on in the bankruptcy court for that if the city chooses to have assignment of those rights. So that's basically what we're here for tonight, is to ask the city if it would accept from the County of Riverside an assignment of rights under the existing subdivision improvement agreements and the bonds that go along with them.
Mr. Johnson, you were up first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Mr. Ronstadt, thank you for the information. Just wanted to, one point of clarification. If those bondholders or the developers are wanting to cancel their agreement with the county and the bonds and form a new contract, new bonding with us, does that allow the city to do new conditions or on requirements on their development?
The answer is yes, as long as they're not more expensive or more onerous than what they have with the county. I mean, if they're willing to agree to it, that's fine, but we can't say your agreement with the county is now over because you're now in the city of Menifee and we're going to impose more stringent, more expensive requirements on you.
No, but if they were asking to, in a sense, renegotiate their bond issue, wouldn't that give the city the opportunity to re-look at some conditions of approval?
Yes, it does.
And then my other question or statement, just a clarification, was this was similar to what the city did at Newport Road, and maybe Carmen Cave can help me with this. I think this is a similar situation that happened with the former Audie Murphy Ranch owners, where there was a bond issue that was out. The former owners went bankrupt. The city approached the county. The county took over the bonds and actually completed Newport Road extension and the Getz Road Bridge, I believe. That's what we're talking about. I know I'm going back a little bit.
Holy cow.
I just want to make sure we're all talking about the same thing.
Yeah, my understanding is that it would be the conditions of the bond, the infrastructure improvements itself, not renegotiate the entire project and the entitlements that were supported by those bonds.
Correct.
Okay, so I hope that clarifies.
Well, no, I think we're talking about two issues. One would be the fact that, right, we wouldn't renegotiate the entire project, but we could look at the conditions of approval and see if they meet our needs today. And if there's no additional funding needed, then we could make some adjustments to those.
Correct. Sometimes projects are over conditioned because there might be 3 projects around the same intersection that are all supposed to improve the intersection, and each one waits for the other guy to blink first before the first one provides the infrastructure improvements. So there may be improvements that are already installed that this project would no longer have to do. So we would look at what conditions exist, what infrastructure improvements are still required, and regardless of whether they were under a certain set of rules then, they may have to abide by, say, a new water quality standard we would then look at to make sure that they had adequate infrastructure to meet today's standards.
And the other issue was the Audie Murphy Ranch, actually, the former owners went bankrupt. The bonds were left there, the money was there. The city asked the county to take over those bonds and actually complete the project. So that would be similar to today. If a project went bankrupt and the bonds were still available, the city would have the opportunity, if we so desired, to go in and make those improvements or hire someone else to make those improvements based on the money that's already there, correct?
Correct. And I would add the caveat that we have to look at each of these individually because there may be provisions in the bonding agreements, for example, regarding assignability clauses, like you can't assign without the permission of the surety or maybe a non-assignability clause or something like that. So we have to look at each agreement and each bonding agreement individually. And for 44 projects, it's a lot of work, but I think that the city would be in a very, very good position with really assuming no liability to take control of these subdivisions at various stages of development and have the ability to enforce the bonds and ensure completion of the infrastructure.
City Attorney?
Yes, just to clarify, do you anticipate that each of these assignments will be coming back for council approval on a consent basis?
No.
Or you want authority for the city manager to sign them as they come through?
Correct. We're working with county counsel's office now to get as much of that analyzed as we can. And pretty much even though they have to be looked at individually, the outcome should be the same. And, we'll obviously tell the city if for some reason there's a prohibition on obtaining an assignment of a certain bond rights or something like that. But it would be very unwieldy to come back 40 some odd times to do that.
Deputy Mayor Edgerton?
Well, if we can get the money from the county to build the infrastructure, I don't know why we wouldn't do it. I'm just, again, concerned about the zingers here by taking this over. I do know that if a guy says, I'd like an option to buy your house, and for the next 5 years, I have that option open to me. At the end of 5 years, he wants to continue the option. Well, the price may be different then. And while this isn't completely analogous, the county was making deals with developers about the city of Menifee, which is a huge city, roughly 50 square miles. And the county had its visions for its unincorporated area. The citizens of Menifee decided they wanted to incorporate, and our visions, oftentimes for some of the same property today, are different than when those contracts were originally completed. And while it's unfortunate that a developer's gone belly up, or that they want to extend, I don't think most of the citizens of Menifee simply want to say, well, gosh, a bunch of people out there want a land bank property in Menifee, and we'll give them an extension for as far as the eye can see, even though it involves building and construction and plans and projects that our planning commission wouldn't agree with today. So that's my concern, Madam Attorney. If you could comment on that, I'd appreciate it.
Sure. The fact of the matter is that we're not talking about extensions. We are talking about circumstance. If there is an extension that is due on one of these, excuse me, then that would be reviewed and a determination made as to whether the changes that you've suggested might be appropriate. But we're talking about situations where there is no extension, but there is a bond out there and conditions haven't been met, and we may want to act to complete those conditions without extending anything.
Okay.
They're just on record.
That's
At
my
least
concern.
that's my understanding, Steve, if you want to.
We'll take the money.
Confirm that.
That's true, and I think developers, if they can, they would be willing to renegotiate a new agreement with the city and get a new bond, but some may not be able to afford it. they would have whatever reasons that they have for wanting to stick with the original one. But I know that Mr. Ross is engaged in many of the negotiations now with many of the developers for new agreements and new bonding requirements.
And it certainly helps our position in those negotiations to be in a position to call the bond. So that enhances the negotiation.
Councilmember Denver?
I got the feeling at the beginning of this that we were doing it because we were going to get some money into our coffers. Is that true or not? Is there, if we say yes tonight, do we get cash from any source?
No.
Well,
What-
did I hear you say that because when you buy a bond, in my world, you pay money to an entity, the bonding company, and in this case, it's an insurance policy, and so if things don't go well and the guy goes bankrupt, doesn't finish the job, that insurance company has to pay a whole lot more money usually to finish the project. So what I'm hearing you say is that we're really just taking on the responsibility and the labor cost of monitoring these bonds, whereas before, for some strange reason, Riverside County was willing to monitor these at their expense?
Well, if
Good point,
infrastructure is not completed, you enforce the bond, and the bonding company doesn't just give you a check. They ensure that the payments are made to complete the infrastructure. So it's not money that goes into your general fund or something like that. And what it allows the city to do is to control and ensure that the infrastructure is in fact completed. The county right now does not have a lot of interest in chasing a developer who may be bankrupt, who may be in default, or going after their bond to get money to complete a subdivision, infrastructure for a subdivision that's no longer in their jurisdiction. So they're offering, and the city doesn't have to take it, they're saying, if you want the ability to extract money from this bond company if something goes wrong in your city, we'll give it to you.
Do we have examples? You don't even have to tell me. Do you have examples of times in the recent past where the county has decided not to go after something and things are being, I'm going to use the word, not competently handled, and they're trying, and therefore one could summarize and say that they don't want to do the job anymore because they are not interested in what's happening in Menifee or something?
I don't know of any.
Well, then what makes you think that they wouldn't just handle it as well as we?
Well, they could, but they don't have the interest that the city would have to ensure that it's completed.
Okay. I don't
City Attorney?
understand, but that's okay.
Yeah, just to conclude on that, the county came to us a couple of weeks ago, and basically they're saying, we're not going to do anything with these.
Oh.
Okay, so they came to us, and they said, we'd like, because some of these are expiring.
I'm sorry, I didn't know that. If you
Okay.
said that, I would have understood.
All right, good.
Deputy Mayor Edgerton?
Well, in reference to, are we going to get any money, it would be my understanding we are getting money. In other words, the money's out there. We want to complete some infrastructure, and this gives us the option to go after those bonding companies who have that money and take the money and finish the infrastructure. Am I correct?
Yes.
Yes, you are correct.
So-
The only thing is that it is restricted to the specific projects,
Well,
so.
okay, but we can use some particularly some underground and on and on and on. We're talking about potentially a lot of money here that we would eventually have to do one way or the other anyway. The only other question I have is, you mentioned hypothetically things could go wrong. What can go wrong? Why? Give me a reason why I wouldn't do this. In other words, I'm looking at it as a fiduciary for the taxpayer, and the taxpayer realizes we have to build a number of infrastructures above ground and below ground, and the money's out there, and we can take it and build it. Why wouldn't I? It seems like a no-brainer, but I'm waiting for the other shoe to fall.
For the most part, it is a no-brainer, but I will add that your ability to collect is based on the financial stability of the surety. And Western Insurance had surety contracts, bonds, with a number of these developers, with the County of Riverside contracts. They are in bankruptcy. So
Well, then we still have another way to go to collect that money, do we not? When they go belly up, we have a right legally
you can.
for a second action, do we not?
Well, yeah, you can sue the developer if they have any money, or you can make a claim in bankruptcy court if you have an insurance company, a surety, that's in bankruptcy. But odds are, you're either going to get nothing or pennies on the dollar. So the risk that you take to complete your infrastructure for any given subdivision depends on the financial strength of the bonding company.
Well, no, you talk about a risk. Why is there a risk if we should know up front whether the surety company has gone belly up or not? We should be able to determine the fiscal responsibility of what's behind these bonds before we would proceed with the development, would we not?
In the case of new development, that's true. But of the ones that are currently in progress, some of them are insured by a surety that is in bankruptcy.
Well, then we're not going to proceed with that development. It doesn't, I mean, that's another no-brainer.
Right, correct.
Mr. Johnson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. That's exactly what we would do. We wouldn't move forward on that particular bond if it's in bankruptcy. But I wanted to hand it over to Mr. Smith and see if he has something to add to this. Jonathan?
There we go. I have had experience in working with sureties that are in the process of bankruptcy on projects that were not completed. There are procedures to follow to get the monies from the bonding companies. So there is a process, and we would evaluate that based on the need of the project.
Just a thought, if I understand this now, it makes complete sense for us to go forward with this now, in my opinion, because they have come to us and said to us, take them over, it's in your town. This is now clear. We should said that, somebody said that at the beginning. I would, if it's all right with the council, I'd make a motion that we accept this and move on.
All right, well, if you would just table that motion very briefly.
Sure.
We're still asking questions of staff, and we have a public speaker on this item. I have a couple questions of staff myself. In reference to the Newport Road realignment project, there was a bond on that project that was for $17 million. The company went bankrupt. A couple of the shareholders in the organization that used to be partners with in the Audie Murphy Ranch development went by the wayside. The county negotiated that bond down to $7.6 million. That's what ultimately, because they had enough cash on the balance sheet to write a check to the county and say, 7.6 million, we call that bond good. The county accepted that deal because the construction costs were so low that with the amount that they did get in cash out of the bond call and the subsequent litigation and negotiation and arbitration for it, they were able to construct the road and have a little bit left over. I guess my concern would be if there's a situation where there is a bond on a project wherein we enter into a negotiation and there's no way that on God's green earth that we're going to get money out of the company, whether it's cash or otherwise, based upon the market condition to construct an improvement, I would have a problem with that. And so I guess my other question of staff would be, do we have a mechanism in our municipal code now that allows us to have bonds in lieu of, or excuse me, deposits of cash in lieu of performance bonds right now? Because, and the reason why I ask that, I don't know if we do, and the reason why I ask that is because the bond market is such. I was talking with one developer who was asked to put up $1 million bond, not in our city, in another city. And he could get bonded for it, but the bonding company wanted him to put them $1 million in cash in their bank and pay them 4% interest just to get the bond for the city to condition the performance of the project, that's craziness. Why not just give the city the $1 million as a condition of approval for the infrastructure? So as we go after these things, assuming that that's what we're going to do, I heard you say, I'd be curious about that, if we have a mechanism in the code for that eventuality. But you said that out of the 44 performance bonds that are hanging out there, some have been released, some have been called, and some need to be called, right? Is that true?
Right.
Okay, so is there going to be, obviously there's a cost for your services or someone's to go after these. So beyond that overhead, is there an additional cost to go after this money in these bonds that may or may not be defunct?
Yes, there would be. But hopefully we don't get to that point. We have to look at each one individually to determine where it stands with regards to the stage of development and what would be necessary to complete the infrastructure and therefore adequate security.
So if we give you the authority tonight to proceed, staff will make that determination whether or not at that tipping point that there's going to be, well, we need to go after this one or not.
Correct.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Edgerton. Thank you.
Since the county has been kind enough to make this offer to us, and I'm always looking at the gift giver, is there any room here based on the various phases of development that we're in and the considerations that have been given over the course of events that we may also have an opening for negotiation with the county where we say, hey, look, perhaps you guys, we're going to take this over, but in XYZ, maybe you could pony up a little here, pony up a little there. Is there room for that? I'm assuming that when the county wants to give you something, there's some benefit to them why they want to do it, and some liability that they want to dump.
Well, I don't know that that has been explored at this point. Steve, I don't know if you...
It hasn't, but in our at least in my discussions with county council, there was no indication that there would be some type of premium or benefit to the city for us to...
Well, they're not going to offer it. But I mean, if I realize that they're holding on to a liability, then that opens up negotiation for me to ask for a little support from the county along with this situation. That there's nothing that would be unusual about a negotiation of that sort.
If that opportunity arises, I will pursue it.
If I may, I think that's an important component of this because in reference to the example that I gave with the Newport Road realignment project, there was a bond for X. The company went bankrupt. A bond call happened. It was settled for Y. When the construction went down, there was a cost associated with that, but there was money left over. And so I don't want the county getting the additional funds that may be left over. So that we can have discretion as to whether those overages go. That's what we need to have that mechanism. And does that make sense what I'm asking?
Yes.
I want to prevent that from happening to us again. Because we could have used that $1 million leftover to go towards other capital improvement projects in the city, such as a bridge over Salt Creek Channel on Bradley Road, or go towards the fund of completing Menifee Road, or going into a fund to help McCall Interchange or even the Holland Road overpass. So any overages that might be there, we need to have insurances as you negotiate these things, in my view, that those overages come to the city.
The only thing that the county has asked, and that is if there is money, say you call a bond or something like that, that the cost that they have to date, that they've invested in the infrastructure in terms of regulation, be reimbursed to them, their fees.
I don't know, well.
Well, excuse me, Mr. Mayor, following up, and then the implication is, as the mayor suggested, once whatever they put in is covered, the mayor is simply saying that it's very conceivable in a situation like this, there's money left over. Did they make it clear that money's coming to us? Did they discuss that? Did they talk about that?
No.
I don't think they would. There's nothing unusual about counties and states having money that's due other people, and if you don't do anything about it, it just is cheats to them, unless you ask.
Mr. Johnson?
Thank you, sir. I think that we're all on the same page, that we would ask for that up front. We can go through these 44 different projects and see what's actually on the sheet itself. And we might be able to bring that back to council if you so desire and direct us to, so that you can see what's actually, what lay of the land there is before we ultimately make the decision.
Okay. Well, we haven't decided yet. Mr. Denver, did you have another comment?
Well, only that I kind of liked what you just said there. I don't understand any situation that you would put us in, the staff member would put us into, where once we are the arbiters of the decisions having to do with the bond companies and the developers, and we're the only participant, county is not involved in any way, shape, or form, where there's any opportunity for them to get any funds at all, anyway. Why don't you just tell them that?
Okay.
All right.
Well, I'm sorry to continue to, Mr. Edgerton brought home my point for me, which was the point of having monies left on the table that may have, that the county may have access to. It would seem to me, and I don't know how we're going to give direction to staff, but, because we're still asking questions, but it would seem to me hypothetically that if the county is willing to give us this responsibility, and we're going to bear the costs of calling a bond or spending the staff work and the time and labor to dial it back and see where we're at, well, you know what, county, too bad, you don't get anything for it. The reason why I say that is, I'll use another example. There's another stakeholder in Menifee who put forth over $380,000 in infrastructure fees towards the county that got lost in the shuffle when we incorporated, and those infrastructure projects never got developed. And so they paid these monies and put these deposits on file with the county, thinking that they were paying into something that was going to get done. I'm sorry, but they should have their money back. Just like a taxpayer should have a tax rebate, that developer should have his or her $380,000 back. Just like a school bond, Melrose, or a DIF fee at a school district that gets paid into to offset, growth. If after 2 years that money sits idle in an account, the developer can ask for that money back under the law. So I guess that if I would ask council, as we're still asking questions of staff, that after we hear the public speaker, if we get into a position where we're asking staff to do the right thing, I would ask that we give enough leeway to staff to negotiate these matters. Okay, are there any other questions of staff? City Attorney.
I just wanted to respond to your question about the kind of ordinances we have in place and whether that would support a letter of credit arrangement or whatever.
Yes.
And the answer is yes, we have those in place. We also have a lien in lieu of a deposit,
Okay.
which allows us to lien property that is valued at more than 150% of the amount that is at risk.
Okay.
Whether or not that's a good idea in these circumstances remains to be seen, but there are those ordinances in effect.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that, because it would seem to me that if we were in a negotiation situation and we're calling a bond, and as part of the negotiation, if the dollar value isn't completely there to cover the cost of the infrastructure, that we can invoke the lien in lieu, and we can put a lien on the property so that the city at least holds some sort of equity in the position. That's good business sense to me. So I'm glad that you clarified that. Okay, are there any questions of staff before we go to public speaker? Okay, Madam Clerk, we'll take a public speaker.
And Pika?
I have nothing against this. I have a question. there was no documentation along with this on the website. I did talk to the attorney, and she explained to me what this was about. But my question is this going to be made available to the public? Are we going to know how many projects are coming in here under these bonds? And will we get a copy of that for the public to view? You're going to review this and you're going to send it back to staff. I'm just asking to make sure the public gets the same information you guys are getting.
Thank you. Madam Attorney, can you briefly, is there a confidentiality issue as we negotiate these matters? Is there an attorney-client privilege between the city, the county, and the bondholder and the former property owner?
Well, there may be during that negotiation period. However, the bonds are public record already.
Okay.
The status of the projects is also public record in terms of where they are. Once decisions are made and we step in, all of that will be public record. We didn't have anything for you this evening because this came up very shortly from the county, and Mr. Onstad was able to meet with them last week. And so we didn't have anything to detail for you at this point. But certainly we can come back and give you further information in the future to show you, what is happening here and what the properties are and that kind of thing.
Okay, so I just want to clarify the direction that you're looking for from the council. If I understand the discussion and the presentation and the council comments, is that you're looking for some direction from the council to proceed with negotiations with the county, to take this matter over from the county and enter into negotiations with the bondholders and the property owners for this infrastructure as the city?
Yes.
Okay. Does the council understand the need from staff? All right, Mr. Denver, would you like to reapproach your motion, or did you have additional comment?
I would like to get the attorney to make my motion for me now.
Oh, you're driving a hard bargain this evening, Mr. Denver. I believe that the motion would be that the council directs staff to work with the county to achieve the assignment of the existing bonds on the various properties that we have heard about this evening that are coming due or are due or past due, and that appropriate negotiations occur with the county to assure that the city obtains the full value of those bonds to the extent possible.
That is my motion.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
All right. Madam Clerk, do we need a roll call, or is this a consensus?
Yes, please, a roll call, Your Honor.
Very well. Please proceed.
Councilmember August. Councilmember Furman.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Edgerton. Councilmember Denver. And Mayor Mann.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well done, staff, for a very thorough report, and thank you for your patience on indulging us in all of our questions. I think you, all of you, did a marvelous job with helping us understand that. Mr. Manager, City Manager reports.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before I jump into that, just to answer Ms. Peak on her request, as soon as we get the information from the 44 projects, we can surely list those on our website.
Very well. Please proceed.
Just have two items tonight, verbal in your red folder, and we've made copies available here with the city clerk. I have two items for you. Got a special report from the league yesterday. Actually, it's dated March 19th, but Chris McKenzie, the executive director, gave a report. It's in your red folder. It's about 3 pages long, letting us know that the Superior Court decided for the state in our VLF diversion lawsuit for the 4 cities. It does not stop the SB 56 that's moving forward. This was just a sidetrack. So the league took a shot at the legislature's decision to fund the criminal justice realignment program with the VLF, and Supreme Court Justice actually shot that down. So it's back to their council. They're looking forward to either making some adjustments and refiling, or letting that go away due to SB 56 that's running through the state Senate at this time. The second item,
And just, if I might ask, just a clarifying question for the benefit of all. This was a lawsuit brought on by the League of California Cities, not the City of Menifee.
correct.
It was brought on by the League subsequent to the grab by the governor and the legislature to redirect those funds as they previously were being distributed to the law enforcement portion of the governor's budget.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
The second item is the finalization of the request that was made by council to the Department of Environmental Health regarding the map that we shared at the Biosolid Workshop. This is a letter dated March 18th to myself from John Watkins, and we'll have the information again up here at the clerk's desk. It's a comparison to the maps created by the Department of Environmental Health and the City of Menifee. Mr. Johnson is requested by you and the Menifee City Council. The Riverside County Department of Environmental Health Geographic Information System Program has completed the map comparison between the 2002 map created by DEH showing permitted sludge biosolid application fields and a map presented by the city at the March 5th, 2013 City Council meeting. The map created by the city reflects the same data of permitted sludge application fields located within the city boundaries as the map created by the DEH in 2002. According to my mapping staff, the only differences was the scale used, and at least 2 DEH-created maps were combined into one in order to fit onto one page. I have attached a copy of the map created by the city that was used in comparison, and he leaves his number to be reached in case anybody has any further questions. Just wanted to clarify that and close the loop on our Biosolid Workshop. That's all I have for tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Are there any questions from council for the manager? Hearing none, are there any future agenda requests from city council members? Mr. August,
Is it okay for me to make a point about AB 5, or have we finished that?
please proceed. Go ahead.
I probably should have pulled this, but I don't know if the lady's still here that was talking about the approval of AB 5. But if she's not, I want to empathize with her. Of course, I voted to opposition to that bill, and I'll give you my reason for it very, very shortly. But I would like to, if the lady's still here, but even if she's not, I'll speak for the people in my community. It's not, in voting in opposition to the bill is not, does not mean that we want to criminalize a homeless condition, or to put people or lock people up in shelters or so on and so forth. I received comments from people in the community, several, and every one of them was for opposition, but not because they didn't care about the homeless and their conditions and want to help and so on and so forth. We have organizations within this city. We have the faith-based organizations, we have the Concern, and we have the Cupboard and so on and so forth that really go out of their way to help these people in the conditions. I've taken people to Sun City Concern before that are homeless, and they've directed them to the right. I also know the police department takes people to shelters and so on and so forth, and those people are right back on the streets the next day. So it's not only a problem for us, it's a problem. I do want to read one paragraph from a constituent of mine who's knows a lot more about this, obviously a lot more articulate and brighter than I am, but I want to give you an idea why I opposed it, and this paragraph will kind of help you do it. Most of the act is preoccupied with amending the various sections of the Civil Code, the Education Code, the Elections Code, Cal Code, the Penal Code, and several federal laws relating to civil rights, the ADA, fair housing, labor, etc. Within this context, these amendments feature the addition of the term housing status to various sections of all these codes and regulations. This bill is a monster, and that's what people are saying. They're saying we don't know enough about it, it's too overreaching, and so on and so forth. But my opposition to this bill is not because I'm in opposition to homeless or in taking care of their needs and so on and so forth. And I'm speaking for my community when I say that, because they do care about the homeless people. Thank you.
Well stated, Mr. August. Deputy Mayor Edgerton?
Well, I certainly had a lot of experience with this issue in my former life as a councilman, and I agree with Councilman August, and I think everybody on this dais is very concerned about the homeless. But you have an acute situation where you have recessions, as we just went through, and a lot of good people are without work, and some of them are homeless. But you find when you give assistance to those people, when you offer them a job, they'll take it. They desperately want the job. But you have the chronic homeless, and they're there regardless of what the economic times are. my personal experience in the city that I worked before, it was very difficult for people, particularly, you know, you'd have anytime it would get cold or anytime at night, homeless want to sleep somewhere, they would find the alcoves of businesses, and that's where they would urinate, that's where they would defecate. And so when a woman would come back to open up her flower shop, first thing they'd have to do in the morning was to clean up the defecation and hose down the unsanitary conditions. Also, business people complain because they do panhandle outside. And most of them are not threatening, but when you open the floodgates, some of them are. You take women with their small children, they walk through parks, they go to public restrooms, and some, not all, are threatening. After all, bear in mind, if they're chronic, we're not talking about when a recession makes somebody homeless. We're talking about the people who choose to be homeless. I say choose, that's an iffy word, because they're usually they're alcoholics, or they're drug addicts, or they're schizophrenics, or have some kind of a mental condition. The state has a responsibility. They dumped that on us. The federal government has a responsibility. They dumped that on us. So now we're sitting with a situation where every city has to deal with that, to exacerbate the situation to a point where our local authorities can't go ahead and protect our ordinary citizens, our ordinary middle class and working people, and their home values and their parks and their businesses, you know, is absurd. That's dumping the matter on ordinary people. I don't think this should be brought to city councils. This issue should be brought before state legislators and Congress. Unfortunately, we have a couple of state legislators who have some ideas that are so liberal that it's wonderful to think about their big hearts, but it would be great if they also had big minds.
Thank you, Mr. Edgerton. Councilmember Demmer, do you have an agenda item request?
I do, actually. One, I'd like to compliment the staff for giving us this guide to emergency operations. I noticed that, and it's wonderful. I noticed that there still is no paperwork having to do with the obligations and the opportunities for city council members to be involved in all of this in a written sort of way. Maybe we should, I would like to know at some point in the future where we're going to be involved in this and have it written down. I think it's important. Second thing, we're going to have a survey brought to us soon, I understand, having to do with the fee schedule that we did not approve some time ago that caused us such consternation on our budget that recently came to us. I would like to have included in that study, or an addendum to that study, a study of the local cities around us and what their fees are for the same fee that is being brought to us, and the Riverside County fees for the same product or the same service, so that we can get this all solved. I'll just leak everybody my opinion. I don't want to be the highest city in the area in terms of fees. I want to be dead in the middle. I'd like to be lower if we could, and in order to be able to make those kind of intelligent decisions, we have to know what other cities charge for these fees and what the county charges. I do think there was some information at one point on county charges, but if that could all be brought to us at the same time as the fee schedule discussion, I'd appreciate it.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes, thank you to both of those items, and we're working on the second one. The first one about emergency services, that was an overview for you, and we're working on training for actual council itself. I believe there is a city council emergency services training coming up in the next week or 2 weeks at the city of Wildemar, but I'll make sure you get that updated information.
Well, I know some of that training can be done online. the FEMA training ICS 100 and 700, which everybody who's a public agency employee, including us, has to do, because we're automatically disaster service workers in the event of a major issue, so that Miss Bennett can't go home at 8 o'clock at night. She has to stay here and man the city, EOC. And then I have to relieve her at 4 o'clock in the morning, or what have you. You get my point. So if we could have, your staff present at the appropriate time. I think that's what you were asking for, Mr. Denver? Yes?
Yes. The detail of it is, though, I wanted to know what, as I said before, the city council will be here when the disaster comes. We will all show up, because that's going to be one thing we do. I would like us to already know what our assignments are going to be, and so we can fall into place and not have it be chaotic for us. That's my goal.
There is an emergency management organization that's rather defined. So, Mr. Manager, did you have an additional comment?
I just wanted to echo his sentiment on emergency services in preparation, and we'll make sure that we get that out to you, and you will definitely know the role that you will play when and if you can make it during the event of a disaster.
So echoed. Thank you. Are there any additional requests from council members for future agenda items? Hearing none, our next meeting of the city council will be on Tuesday, April 2nd, 2013. This meeting is adjourned.